Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, AMPRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about Jayden Daniels and his rib injury, which I will get to in a minute. First, though, a reminder, 7:30 Eastern Time, Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, and I will be back with our live stream show. So again, Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern Time with the live stream show with Bram Weinstein. Anyways, let's get to the Jayden Daniels update, and then I'm going to get into some thoughts and comments from the game based on watching the game again and then talking to a few people, etc. So first on Jayden Daniels. So the good news for Washington is that Dan Quinn said it's not a long-term injury. I'm sure you know that by now. I'm sure you've heard a lot about this, but just in case you haven't. So not a long-term injury. They're still hopeful he could play against the Chicago Bears. And Quinn said they're going to be extremely smart, take every precaution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll know more on Wednesday when we're able to go out and watch practice this for the first time this week. And we'll see what he does. I don't know if anything will be definitive as of Wednesday. I'm just going to tell you what I know, and that's about it. And what I do think is that this team will be very smart with it. So if he does play, do not sit there and cross your fingers with like that they're doing something wrong. I think if he plays, it will be because he can. And if you're healthy and they feel you can play, you are going to play. So that's what I would say there. So this is not a situation where you got to rest him just because, but because if he's healthy, you're going to play him. And you know who's going to want to play in that situation? Jayden Daniels. So anyways, a lot of it though is going to come down to comfort level of throwing, the ability to throw, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll know more throughout the week. So stay tuned for that. It'll be talking about it ESPN, and we'll be talking about it here as well. So there you go. That's one thing. And then also Brandon Coleman is in the concussion protocol. That's about all we know there. And so there'll be more updates throughout the week. So today I want to talk a little bit and talk about Dante Fowler Jr. Had a really good game. Marcus Mariota, what we saw from him. But I'm going to start with something I like, and it's a little wrinkle. And they only ran this like 3 times, if I recall, but they've done it various times throughout the year. But they used that unbalanced line, and Sunday it was very effective. Now we're not talking these monster plays. It was just a good little wrinkle, and I appreciate what they do. And I think sometimes it's a part of what Cliff Kingsbury does well. Is just I think it's a creative use of personnel. I think you see that on defense as well, but it also led to success on the ground. So they used it 3 times. They gained 11 yards, 8 yards, and then 7 yards. So 26 yards on 3 plays, not a bad average on the ground. And I like what they do with that. So, and they, they like to run that guard tackle pulling action. So this is a little bit of a spin on that because you're still kind of running that action just with different personnel, but you're also catching a team maybe a little unaware because you could see the way that the Panthers handled it the first time. I'm not sure that the Panthers lined up properly to defend that look. The second time you can see there was still some confusion. One of the linebackers still has his kind of as the ball is being snapped, has his back. He's not turned to the ball, but he's looking back. So he's not ready for the play. So there, because there was a different look and they saw like they're coming, it's run out of a no huddle, just really good use of personnel. They're doing it without having to bring an extra lineman in. So a lot of times you see Trent Scott come in that kind of situation. Well, this time it was a couple times Andrew Wiley's over on the over on the left side. One time it was Brandon Coleman on the right side as the right tackle next to Wiley. And then you'd have one time it was 2 tight ends on the right side with you had Ertz and I think it was Ertz and Bates. One of them I think it was Ertz runs a little circle route out of the back, to take away one side, but then Bates is pulling over. One time there was a tight end in the backfield and there was tight end, so just a lot of variety of looks, but each time it had success. And I like what Kingsbury does. I think sometimes he plays chess with this stuff, but I also like that there was one time they ran it back to back and it was with Andrew Wiley. One time he was on the left side, the next play, it was Brandon Coleman was on the right side. And those one time it went for 11 yards. The next time, and it was Brian Robinson up the middle. The next time it went for 7 yards, but it was the keeper that Jayden Daniels had around the left end. If you remember the one where he awkwardly fell, that's if he's not hurt already, then there's a chance that he gets a lot more yards on that. Maybe cuts up, maybe makes the guy miss. There's one defensive back over there. He probably gets three to five more yards regardless, just because of how it fooled the defense. And then the next time it was on the Brian Robinson 8-yard touchdown run. But each time very effective, running out of the no huddle. It forces the defense to line up properly against that look. And if it's coming late, then you may not know that what's coming. But overall, I like the concept of what they do with it. And part of it is at times you're getting a bigger guy at the end of the line. So there one time with Wiley, he's blocking down on the defensive end, and then you're coming through with the pulling action again with Cosme and then a tight end with Bates. So you're getting a little bit more quickness coming over there as well. So to pull the pulling action, and it's just a nice little wrinkle. And again, if the defense doesn't line up right, it's the math adds up in their favor. And so it really forces the defense to be very sharp with their alignment. And then, and sometimes it could make it easier for the center if the nose tackle lines up or somebody over the center lines up incorrectly, it can make it much easier block for the center as well. So, that's something there. And it's funny because I was talking to one defensive coach earlier today, not here, but his comment was like, well, did they pass out of it? So he's like, if they didn't pass out of it, just watch for that against the Bears. Like, would they pass out of that set because they ran it different way, two to Robinson, one zone read, but that's something to watch for. So it's not the first time they've done it. It was just something I noticed again on Sunday, and they scored a touchdown off it. And I just think it's been effective for them. So just wanted to point that out. And it's funny because and that's one of the guys I talked to. I always like talking to Logan Paulson about this stuff, and he was the one to point out it can make the block easier for the interior line, especially the center, if they don't line up. If they kind of line up a certain way, then it's just an easier angle for the center. So always it's just a little wrinkle that I think has been effective. And again, I like that they ran it on consecutive plays. And they end out of no huddle. And so there you go. So let's look at Dante Fowler, because I thought he was obviously very impactful, not just a touchdown. He was impactful overall. I felt like consistently throughout the game, he's been playing pretty well this season, a good pickup for a guy who's a rotational end who has had to play a lot more, I think, than what maybe they anticipated because the injuries at defensive end with Farrell and then with Armstrong. And by the way, no update on Armstrong. He too has the rib injury. We'll know more about that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Kind of knew he wouldn't play last week because I know how painful it is for him right now. Don't know what that means yet for Sunday. Anyways, on Fowler, before the touchdown, he had a couple really good plays. He had a good pressure, got in Dalton's face on one, resulted in a completion, I think like an 18-yard gain, but it was a good pressure. And then one of the plays that actually maybe saved that first series and changed, I wouldn't say it changed the game because they were going to move the ball up and down in that defense anyways, but it certainly got the game started off in Washington's favor. So if you remember the screen pass that Dalton tried to throw on the first down and he just overshot the receiver, well, it's because Fowler was about to tackle him, right? So he forced him to make an errant throw. If he completes that throw, there's three blockers headed out there. There's two small defensive backs down the field. It is a long run, maybe a touchdown if it's blocked right and if they make move, but so who knows? But regardless, it would have been a big gain. And then 2 plays later, it was a touchdown for Washington because of Fowler. Then there was also the 4th and 1 stop where he basically reads the play, and right before the snap, he cuts inside a little bit and just shoots inside the tight end's block and makes a stop for a loss. Just a lot of really good plays by Fowler. He's been a good pickup, and I just think this game was a good one for him. So there you go. There were a lot of different things too that one of the benefits of winning by a lot of points is the ability to get a lot of guys get more time, because there's some guys on this defense that need more time. Johnny Newton needed more time. You had guys like F.A. Obata who haven't played in a while. He needs more reps. So they're getting those chances in games where you're blowing teams out. This is the third game in the last four of their last four where they've won by 21 or more points. So you're being able to rest guys, but you're getting guys more time who need, like Johnny Newton badly needs more time. Like this has become akin to a preseason for him. And I think, they were kind of a little bit past that because, he missed a few games, but you're really looking at that kind of situation where he's got a lot to learn. And you can still tell that he's learning out there. I think Fedarian Mathis needs a lot of reps consistently when he's healthy. He's getting that. And here's an impact on Durant. There were 8 defensive linemen who played at least between 15 and 23 snaps on Sunday. Nobody played more than 23. I think it was 23, maybe 25. It was Johnny Newton played the most, and the least was 15 for F.A. Obata. So, Jalen Holmes, who was just signed last week, got 16. Jamin Davis got 16 at defensive end, had a couple nice plays, some good, set the edge a couple times. So, they're also not afraid to use different combinations, even earlier in the games. And later in the game, I'm watching rotations of it's, Jalen Holmes and Sheldon Day and, Johnny Newton and F.A. Obata. Like, that's not a combo you would have thought about that you would have put any money on being together because, first of all, Holmes wasn't here, but also it's just that's what they're willing to do. But the impact too, curious on the impact on a guy like Daron Payne. Here's some stats for you on that. I want to find them. Where did I put those? So last year he had 11 games where he played more than 50 snaps. This year it's a big goose egg. No games like that. Last year, 16 games with more than 40 snaps. This year, 2. That helps. You would like to think for them that will keep him fresh and healthy throughout the year. You're developing depth. Now, you have to be a good defense too. You have to make plays as well if you're going to do that. So these guys who are backups have got to do more than just be on the field when you're facing. And I think Carolina has been a solid offense with Andy Dalton running the show. So they did a really good job on Sunday. And Hubbard is a really good running back for Carolina. And they did a good job there too. So little things for example, Dan Quinn talked about the tackling on his conference call on Monday. Tackling definitely was better on Sunday. Yards after contact in the run game, 1.17. That's a season low for Washington. Yards after the catch on receptions, 3.1, another season low or season best, however you want to term it, season low for Washington. Hubbard averaged only 1.41 yards after contact. That's the second lowest he's had this year since the opener. So, it shows you that they were just much more sound and disciplined, I felt like in better position to make plays, especially in the pass game. When you watch it last week. Now, last week they gave up a lot of yards after contact in the pass game. This week better, facing a much different offense, and Baltimore's offense is definitely more explosive. We all know that, but it was improvement, and now they have to carry through to against Chicago. Can they do that? Well, it was a good game for them. We'll see what they do, but it was a better game overall. But I do think they're using a lot of guys, and even on Sunday. What I like is that there seem to be, it's not just throwing guys out there, it's trying to find what they do. And it's trying to find guys like Emmanuel Forbes. He played a decent amount and he contributed. So, but I think there were times where it was Forbes and St. Juste were the corners. And there was one time where St. Juste is not out there. And there's times where they mix up the safeties too, right? So, and it's not always one guy out there. Now that's, there's some element of, well, if you had stronger starters, maybe you don't have to do that in some of those spots. But I like that if you don't have that, you're finding ways to keep guys engaged and find ways to help them to allow them to contribute to this team. So I think that's a good thing because it keeps people sharper. I think it keeps them more engaged, and you want that, I think, on a roster. But ideally, you'd have a bunch of all pros back there. If you don't have that, find what guys do and use them in that way. And I think it bodes well for how they use their talent. And I felt like they executed a little bit better. One of the plays there were some things, there was one play where it was a combo of rush and coverage, You always hear that because if you want to run stunts, you want to do some things, you better get some good coverage behind it. Now, there's a 3rd and 12, so you know it's going to be a slower developing play anyways because it's 3rd and 12. You can't just boom boom. So on this, you had Deron Payne was standing as it was aligned as a stand up end, and you had Dante Fowler inside. So they run a little stunt, and Payne just blows through coming inside. Well, that's a play where he chases Dalton out of the pocket and he has to throw to a receiver, I think a receiver tight end for a 2-yard gain. But the coverage was solid. The coverage was, it looked like a split safety alignment, and then it looked like they rotated after the snap. So it almost looked like maybe one side was quarters, maybe one side was, I can't remember what the other side, but it looked like they mixed it up a little bit after the snap, and that helped. I don't know that that necessarily slowed Dalton down because it was going to be a slower developing play anyways. But if you're going to do that, you've got to buy them time, and that was the case. And Payne caused the pressure because of that. So and like I said, I thought Forbes did fine. He had the interception. It was not the best of route by Deontay Johnson, but a good job by Forbes being where you should be and picking that ball off. A nice job by him. And there's like you heard Fred Smoot on my podcast last week talking about how he felt that one of the things that Forbes needs is confidence, and just to build that confidence, that should give him more confidence. And there were some times he did a really nice job, and there are a couple of times where you say that play is going to bite you if you do that against another team, or if you didn't get pressure on that play. Like there was one time where, and I'm not sure why Dalton doesn't throw. He's covering it on a deeper out, and as the receiver comes out his break, Forbes slips. There's an opening. Dalton doesn't throw it. Another time he gets beat on a double move, but there was pressure. It didn't matter. So that's where the rush can bail you out. And there are other times where the coverage is going to bail them out. And he, like I said, he did a good job on that coverage on the interception. Not his fault. The receiver ran a bad route. He's where he should be. He picked it off. A good job by him. And but like I said, I like I like how they're using guys and just not. I mean, if you're out there, you're going to play. That should build depth and it should keep guys healthier throughout the year. And especially, like I said, a guy like Deron Payne, you need him now, especially with John Allen out, to be a linchpin of that defensive line. But I also like the way Fedarian Mathis has been playing. And like I said, I think Johnny Newton still needs to keep developing, but Mathis is a guy that I think continues to get just a little bit better, a little bit more consistent, I would say. He's not making splash plays, but he's been more consistent. And listen, man, that's what you need. Then you get like Mike Samerstill, really like how he sticks his nose in plays. Like, I'm telling you, man, he's not a big guy. He's up near the line. That dude is fearless. And stuff like that goes a long way. And it's funny because one of the things that Dan Quinn talked about with him early in there is just how he's a leader, not just among the rookies, but among other players in that room. And there are times where you can see the way he talks to a guy. I think it was like Percy Butler, or someone like that. Now, granted, Sam Russell's 24 years old. He's not just some 22-year-old rookie. Played a lot of college ball, 24 years old. So there's a different level of maturity to him. But there was one time I was talking to Butler coming off the field. He just kind of pats him just kind of pats him on the back or something like that, the way that an older guy would do to a younger guy. But there's just a different style of leader, just a different level of leadership with Sam still. And I think that's something that they obviously love and can build on. But like I said, defense was much more consistent overall. You didn't see the coverage issues. You didn't see the communication breakdowns. This was not the same level of offense as Carolina. We know them, as Baltimore, we know them, but it was an offense that had been giving teams some problems for at least a few quarters every game the last few weeks. And, it'll be interesting to see what they do against the Bears offense with Caleb Williams and his ability to extend plays for sure. So, I'm not sitting, I don't know where this defense is going to go, but I do know there's some guys that did a nice job. And there's some areas where you just say, okay, that was a really good game. There's a hard to really find like some, just find areas like, oh, this was just horrible. I don't think there was nothing like that. Yeah, you gave up 7 points and you gave up less than 200 yards. It was pretty damn good effort and good showing, but they were just consistent. And the one play that really got him was that jet action. It wasn't a missed tackle. It was just, they didn't see the guy, right? It was just missed. And, and they recovered on that first drive. And from there, they were home free. So anyways, So anyway, let's get to Marcus Mariota and we'll finish up there. And felt like obviously he did a nice job overall. This was this, he missed those 4 games. So like there are things that you wonder how much of this is a little bit of rust and how much of this you still got to get used to it, or this is who you are. Because there are definitely some plays where it's like, okay, to get you to have that full rhythm and timing back, it takes a minute. And it takes more than just, a few reps in one game against the Browns, for example. And it takes more than just getting some time during the week. But one thing that Quinn did say, and this was something that helped him, but it's why they like having a guy like Mariota back there. And it's funny because like I know people wonder like what is he just here to help? He's here to help Jayden, yes. But he's also here because he's a veteran with experience. So one of the things he did on Friday was he walked through after practice a lot of the 2-minute stuff. Well, guess what they executed really well on Sunday is that 2-minute drill right before halftime. And that was a really, really good job by Mariota and the offense, but he really orchestrated that, made some of his better throws. And that really, I think, got them going for the second half for sure. I mean, the game was over once they scored that touchdown, but that was a really nice drive by them. And, they're definitely, for a guy that hadn't played a lot, again, missed time in the preseason, did a really good job just finding some guys, using his legs to extend plays. Sometimes to be honest, I almost wondered, did he maybe make it tougher on himself? And I'll get to that in a minute, just by maybe leaving a pocket that was pretty good, or, and that's something that's more for coaches to answer, but it's something that sometimes you wonder, like, could you have done this here? Could you have just stayed with this a little bit longer? Was that a good pocket to leave, or did you make the right decision? So those are things that I would ask that you try to kind of poke around and find out about. And that's something I'll get into more throughout the week, especially if he's going to end up having to play against versus Chicago on Sunday. Don't know yet again. So, but I think, he showed a level of athleticism that's really good and that's needed that's welcomed at that position. It's something that Cliff Kingsbury clearly values with Jayden Daniels. And I like that they continued right away using his legs as part of the zone read. You got to let him know you're going to do it. It's a key part of this run game because you can see what it does to the team, to the defense, with the way it freezes the backside. If you just even carry out your fake, there's a lot of good to it. And it just opens things up for Brian Robinson, Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, anybody back there. So I think that's why it's important to have a guy like Mariota. It's funny because I know when he was signed, not a lot of people were crazy about it, and I wasn't sold on it either, because when you watch him, like, I wasn't really sold on how well I'd seen him play for other teams. But then you put him in this offense, and with his legs, well, he looked different, right? So can he do that in a game next week where maybe it's just you're going to face a much better defense? We'll see if he has to play. Well, we'll see. But I will say it was good for him to get, if he has to play next week, it was good for him to get three quarters of action and to make some plays and still, to build that confidence in yourself and also show your teammates what you can do. So that's all good. Now, like I said, there are a couple times where you wonder, did you make it tougher on yourself? And there's one play where he scrambles to the right and he connects with Terry McLaurin for 18 yards. But it looks like, I just wonder, because I'm not in his shoes. I'm not a quarterback expert, but sometimes you see this stuff, say, I wonder if, and this is something I would want to ask him. I wonder if, could you have stayed in that pocket just a titch longer because you got Noah Brown down there and you got the pass? You actually had McLaurin as well. Did you leave that a little bit soon to make it tough for yourself? Could you have thrown that? I know the guy's starting to kind of get through there, and maybe you just feel that. And I'm never having played the position, but I wonder if he could have just stayed in there. You had Noah Brown down there, and now the throw was a really nice one to McLaurin, but it's also into tight coverage. So did you make it tougher on yourself, or was that just a really good play? So there are a couple times like that where you wonder about the rhythm of the play, and where maybe you're getting to your drop step and you're having to hitch a couple times and then get rid of the ball. Ideally, you're hitting that plan step, maybe hitch and go, but that's all from not having played. And despite all that, 18 for 23 for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. Pretty damn good for a guy that hadn't played in a while, of meaningful minutes in a while. And I know that, again, the Browns game was, it's the last quarter, so you're only talking a couple of drives, etc. So a really good job by Mariota, but I do think I'm sure there are a couple of times where you wonder, are you drifting a little bit in that pocket there too? And then, does that take you out of something or maybe, whatever. But I think that's something that a part of it as well. And is that something that where he would just say, okay, oh, okay, you see it now, next week you're more cognizant of that. But again, 18 for 23, 205, two touchdowns. And the pass to Ertz for the touchdown was a beautiful throw and a beautiful play by him getting outside the pocket. And, so the good thing too, I'll say this, when I'm watching this stuff, there are times where, and I saw this with Jayden Daniels too. So it's not just Mariota. And that's what I say, like Daniels, sometimes you say, you wonder the same stuff. Like, could you have done this? Um, and that happens in a lot of games that you watch with any quarterback. But what I will say is that there are definitely times where Luke McCaffrey's getting open. He's not always the primary guy. He does get open. And a lot of times, they're playing, Carolina playing a lot of zone. So you saw that. Um, but he gets open a decent amount. And at some point, like they're not always having to get it to him, but he's there when they need him. And there were a couple of times where it's like, yeah, could you have done this here? Well, yeah, sure, maybe. But the point is, I don't care. This isn't about the throw per se. It's just more that he does get open. And so I think that's a good sign for them. And like I said, I like how Mariota used his legs, and I liked how he did keep the ball alive, and he was pretty good, even on the McLaurin one that I talked about, where I wondered if could you have done, maybe stay in the pocket and get to Brown. What I like is, there are times where he's getting out, or maybe he's directing guys where to go, and just kind of helping his receivers and the targets too. So that's a veteran savvy for him. And it does seem like he really likes being in this offense. And if this is something that he hadn't played in since college, where it was good for him, well, no wonder why it was good for him now. But I do like the thing that I would be the one question I would have is still more so about ball placement and accuracy, because he was up and down with that this summer. Would that be better for next week? And there were a couple of times, like one thing too, and sometimes is it just a matter of like, hey, get back to your fundamentals. And this is like more experience thing, not just age experience, but that, getting back into your rhythm. There was one throw to De'Ami Brown where it looks like just he misses it. I was like, how do you try to sometimes analyze, how did he miss that? Like, why was the throw off? And so you try to break it down. It looked like maybe the follow through wasn't quite as good as it was on his next pass to De'Ami Brown, which was a 23-yard bullet. And it was a beautiful throw. And that's what it looks like for him. So that, can you become, if the more time you get, if he has to play this week, does that become more consistent for you? And then lead to maybe even a more consistent game, or not even, just in general. And it sounds like I'm being harsh on him, and I'm not trying to be. I'm just trying to look at it like, okay, this is what happens against Carolina. How does this translate to if you have to play against the Chicago Bears, who have a better defense? And where are areas that you can say, okay, he did this last week. How does it compare? But again, he definitely made plays with his legs. He kept plays alive, and he had a hell of a 2-minute drive. And I thought, like, for a guy who hadn't played meaningful minutes, really, he did a really, really good job coming in that situation. I think you saw exactly why they like having him around. In addition to, I think, being a good sounding board for Jayden Daniels and a good mentor for him. So, there was, but like I said, I point out that there was another throw to McLaurin was just coming in a little in route on the left side, just really well timed. And I also talked about this after the game, but the last one I want to talk about is there's one time with McLaurin is on the left side. It's a 2nd and 15, and you can see the ball coming out of his hands before McLaurin is coming out of his break, and because he knows where he's going to be, and that it would turn into a 19-yard gain because that ball's out so fast. So just a good job by him on that play. And you could see when it's like when that rhythm was going and what it looked like, and that's what they want to see. And the nice thing is Dude was making plays, and that's all you need to do in this league. You make a lot of plays, you win a lot of games. So anyways, folks, that's it for me. Again, 7:30 Eastern time, Tuesday night with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. And then I'll be back. I'll also have Courtney Cronin on later this week talking about the Chicago Bears, because this is a big matchup, and this will be one of the more fun home matchups this certainly this year. This, as far as the excitement level around it, with especially if Daniels plays and you got Caleb Williams, this is going to be another fun game. And isn't it fun to say that this team is involved in fun matchups? Anyways, that's it for me, folks. Always appreciate you tuning in. Thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you next time.